Good tidings, friends, and welcome to a new episode of, I don't really know if this is a Zaya short or just a KHUX episode, or what to call this, because it is very ghetto. As you can see, I am in my, oh dear God, guys, in my car, because I found out, or not really found out, but just kind of realized that there's actually nothing illegal about recording videos in my car as long as I'm not touching my phone, while I'm driving, and I live an hour away from literally everything, so let's put that time to better use. But what I'm here to talk to you about today is a Demyx event that started yesterday. Now, this is, because it brought to light some interesting things, and first and foremost, I would like to give a little tutorial on how to get through it if you're struggling, because this is the first event that I actually got to the end of, and will have a shiny gilded Demyx medal. Now, I'll talk more about why that is and why that actually is a bit of a problem in a moment, but first, let's get that tutorial rolling. The license plate in front of me is Princess. I do not trust them. So, as you can see, I left it on the screen with, my metal setup, and, which keeps, oh, it's not actually dark, it's just so bright outside, I can't see anything anyway, you can see the kind of stuff I did, and I have it set up here on the last one. Now, for the Demyx event, there are only two different types of fights. The majority of them are just timed, get through the level as fast, well, they all technically are, but that comes in the form of fighting normal enemies and fighting, the bosses really quick. And I'm just going to assume that most you are having, excuse me, I have hiccups suddenly, having more of a problem with the bosses. But in both cases, you wanna put your highest literal DP at, like, real-time DPS medals, which is not something you normally think about for KHUX, but just because something has, more hits, now in general, if it hits multiple times, it has a longer animation, but that's not always the case. There are a lot where the animation is one smooth attack, and it hits like 5 times in the line or something. So, for example, here, my Halloween Town Sora, it's 3 hits, but it's a very short animation, and that's what you want to focus on. It's the same kind of DPS calculation you use for, like, Pokemon Go, basically. Which is not normally what I consider DPS in this game, because it's a turn-based game, normally. But it, sorry, I'm not sure that my phone is actually plugged in correctly. This is a very long way. But usually I didn't have to break, like, I killed it before anything had even got to XIII down there, because if you notice, the levels are pretty low. We're used to hitting, like, level 400 stuff in these events now, and this is only level 200 for the last one. Obviously you're gonna have to be beating it in one turn, but normally I highly praise the Destroyer of Worlds setup, where you buff the ever-loving shit out of your medals, and you just don't have time for that right now, to beat these bosses, and they also don't need it, so just take all of your strongest goddamn medals, load them up on the front, and go, go, go. Now, for the ones where you're fighting just a bunch of normal enemies, I highly recommend putting Illustrated Kyrie or a medal that does a flat damage, such as Yuffie or something, at the front, because for the most of the event, they're a low enough level that will pop them anyway, and it's a one-hit, really short animation always. So that is the best way, really, to do that. is to just, because for most of them, even the last couple ones that were just normal enemies, I would pop everything with just illustrated Kyrie. Like, I wouldn't have to do anything else. And of course, always check to see if you can go around something even though it doesn't look like it. Like, I totally broke one of the levels. They did not place something correctly because it was clearly supposed to be blocking a pathway, and it was not. And I just walked fucking around it, and it was like, well, bye. And so you notice that the levels are really low, and I wanted to talk about that. Now, in Japan, this was the first Organization 13 event. They started a month earlier than us, so they started with Demyx instead of Barlucia. Now, you can tell because all of the levels are only like 200 and below. And that's not actually a very good sign. On the one hand, it's like, oh, well, I'm gonna be able to beat this level, so it's great, but on the other hand, it shows what Square Enix's do as far as balancing, and if someone on the KHUX team for some reason actually sees this, because I know it's you, North America Square Enix team, because the Japanese game doesn't have shit as fuck broken balancing. The Japanese version of the cell phone game is very different, guys. It is much nicer to its players. But you shouldn't be, I know there's metal inflation, and no matter what you do, there's going to be a subtle inflation as you increase new metals, because there's only so many new creative, I mean, they did good, they started pulling out some more creative stuff with different kind of buffs, and I mean, that created like a buff inflation, where they had to increase the like maximum buff number because they had too many buff metals. And they had like the copy medals, and they're finding more, like, I really like the Vanitas medals mechanic, where it costs 6 but it restores 3, so technically if you're counting for sustain it doesn't use that much, but if your shit goes below 6 you can't use it. It's a good mechanic. But I don't blame you for having metal inflation. It's gonna happen, but the response isn't to then go and raise levels of all of the monsters exponentially. That you don't do that. I don't like that my growth as a character playing the game is met by all of the challenges. Like, I never get stronger in proportion to what I'm playing. It's like, I rushed through the beginning when I first started, when the game first came out, and wherever I was during those 2 weeks, I have stayed proportionally as strong the entire time I have been playing. That's not okay, and that's not healthy growth. You're not giving, because the reason these games have, ranking events and equivalent to PvP things is to reward the players who do manage to go above and beyond. But as far as things like this, or the normal reward rankings on the high score events and stuff like that, it's not, you shouldn't make it so that, like, 90% of your goddamn player base can't accomplish the event. You're not making anyone happy. Well, you're making the whales happy, and I guess those are the only people you care about because they're the ones giving you money, but it's really shitty, guys. So it was kind of a red flag, and it really bothered me, so I wanted to talk about it. Noticing that you can tell the Demyx event is 10 months, I suppose. Or more than that. I guess it's a year, because, yeah, literally a year ago, the levels and stuff are just so much lower that now it's a goddamn cakewalk. And also the fact that I think it's sloppy and lazy that they let that show by putting the exact same event without any like, if you're at least going to do that, stick to your guns and fix the goddamn Demyx event to match for the English players, you already changed a bunch of shit from the Japanese game anyway. I don't understand what the point of changing shit from the Japanese game, or not changing it, is at this stage of the game, since you change stuff all the time. Don't get me started on the Maui medal. But not it. It was a bit worrisome, especially since, I was feeling a little bit of personal growth in the game with it, and I was using the XIII events to kind of judge that, because it'd be like, oh man, I got one level farther this time. And that kind of stopped, and now I've kind of capped always only really getting to like the third or second to last one, and getting really stuck. And which, I mean, isn't bad. I mean, that's okay. I can't beat the last level. That's fair. But there are a lot of other events, and I'm looking at high score challenges that are just unfair beyond all reason. Because it's not. But I'm just rambling at this point. I'm sorry. So the point is, if you want to beat Demyx, that was my little, the balancing is really fucked up PSA. So look out for that. But you should be able to beat Demyx without having to do anything fancy, without having to buy anything. Just slap on some, heavy hit medals at the beginning. You're probably fine. Now, I did want to go in a little bit more depth to explain this, because while most people don't have this, I know Venfriend has a weird problem where his phone, it's not his internet. It is not his internet, because we've been on the same internet and my phone doesn't do it. His phone lags the game. Just long enough that it makes a huge difference whenever there are timed events. But also, I think it's a big testament to how easy this is, that I not only beat the event, but I beat it the day it came out with, literally no effort. I died maybe once, or failed once. I didn't die at all. But for people who have problems like that, or maybe you do just have shitty internet and there's nothing you can do about it in the time frame, and you would like yourself a sweet David Bowie mohawk, then by all means, please take this advice into account in helping you get through the level as fast as possible. So on that note, happy Organization 13 event week. Happy Demyx month. And save your tears, cause I'll be back. Oh, and one last thing before we go, especially since we just hit a stoplight, I just wanted to share. I'm a sad nerd. Okay, and on that note, save your tears, cause I'll be back. If I can stop the video.